Good evening, everyone. So here is my second video in which I'm going to be explaining the command task. So let's begin without further delay. All right. So this PPT of mine was based on my describing what is command task, which is a part of the group testing. So I believe that the foremost thing is that we should go through what exactly is group testing and what all things are included in group testing so that we get a better idea of all the tasks that are needed to be performed, the similarities between them, and how they are to be proceeded with. Sorry. So the group testing is one of the most thrilling tasks of the whole process. It definitely and most definitely is the most thrilling task of all of the interview process. That is because you get to do a lot of group activities, and it kind of creates a sense of adrenaline rush doing all of those activities. So that is why I believe that it is the most thrilling task. So group testing is one of the most thrilling tasks of the whole process as it involves group activities centered on group dynamics, certainly, and adrenaline rush. GTO task in SSB interviews produces important conclusions and assessments about each candidate. Here, in group testing, you are to perform tasks in groups and individually as well. So now the tasks that are performed by you can be termed as the assessment task, and some might be concluded or some might be stated as confirmatory tests. So, GTO tasks differ from the other two testing approaches in that they require the candidate to reveal his true self through a series of action in which he will be put under pressure with or without his group, and his reasoning and logical abilities will be tested. Now, in the other two tasks, that is the psychology testing and the interview. Now, in psychology testing, what happens is that you perform, but you are not really certain of how it went, of how your psych went, because we don't really have a great idea when we perform of how we should have performed, or and we always get the idea that we could have done better. So we're not really confident about our test. Then comes the interview, in which we are certain, I mean, in which we get a clear approach or we get a clear result of how we performed, but we can never be sure of how our performance can be judged by the interviewing officer. So we're yet again not very sure of our performances, neither in psych nor in interview. But the group testing is the procedure or is the part of this testing that actually gives you a clear indication, and it makes sure that you have all the control of the things that he might assess in you. So in this task, you have absolute and total control of everything you need to show to your group testing officer and everything that the abilities that you possess. So it consists of a series of tasks, obviously, and are conducted over a span of days. Now, the tasks to be conducted within the group testing are quite many, so they are not usually performed on a single day and are divided for 2 days. So this test is usually conducted on day 2 and 3 or 3 and 4. Now it depends on the batch you are. If you're in the freshers batch or you're in the repeaters batch, so what happens is that the group testing can be conducted either on days 2 and 3 or on days 3 and 4. And it also differs from if it's either SSB or the AFSB interviews. Now let's discuss of all the tests that are conducted within the group testing. So the day one is usually started with the group discussions. So for the I'm sorry. So there are two group discussions that are conducted one after the other. Group discussion one, in which two topics are given to the group by the group testing officer, and the group as a whole has to decide one particular topic in which they would like to discuss. And the second group discussion is held on the topic that that the group testing officer him gives by himself. The next comes the group planning exercise. It is one of the most interesting and one of the most amazing exercises of all of the testing. Then comes the progressive group task. Now, these three tasks, these are conducted, or these are um, the tasks that do not require any physical approach. These require mental approach. So your ability to speak, your ability to analyze the situation, your ability to analyze the problems and come up with solutions. That these are the kind of things that are assessed in these three tasks. Then comes the progressive group task. Now, what is a progressive group task? So, progressive group task is the first uh, is the first test that is conducted outside or on the field. Now, you have to perform as a group, and you have to make sure that you don't show off yourself as an individual person in a group while you work as a group. You need to lead the team. You have to work as a team and showcase your team spirit. Then comes the snake race. It is one of the most interesting and one of the most fun tasks of it all, where you can let it loose, help your teammates, and enjoy it thoroughly. Then comes the half group testing, in which the group can be of either 8 people or 10 people, and then it is divided in half. A group of 8 will be divided into two groups of 4, and a group of 10 will be divided into two groups of 5, and the two groups have to separately perform tasks. Then comes the lecturate. And after the lecturate, day one is concluded. Now let's talk about day two. Now, day two, it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't contain a lot of tasks. It only contains three tasks, which could either be started by the command task or by the individual obstacles. In all of my interviews, I've experienced that the command task is always held first. So there is this command task, which we will be talking about further. Then comes the individual obstacles, in which you are given 10 obstacles, which you have to complete in given 3 minutes. Then comes the final group task. It is exactly like progressive group task, only you have to cross many structures in progressive group task, while you only have to do one in final group task. And going further, now let's start discussing about the command task on which the video is about. So what exactly is a command task? Command task is conducted during the second day of group testing, as we have already discussed. The aim of this test is to find out the commanding capability of the candidate and is at many instances referred to as the confirmatory test, which confirms all the qualities and clarifies all the doubts in the mind of the assessors. Now, as the command task by its name suggests, that it would definitely check out your ability as that of a commander. Now, what happens is that previously all the tasks that were conducted, that is the progressive group task and the half group task, you had to work as a team. There was no particular leader or there was no particular commander who would lead your team towards finding the solutions of the structures and crossing them. While in the command task, you are the commander, you are the leader of the group, and you have to lead your group to solving the problem or solving the or coming to the solutions of the structure, clearing it, either passing it or however the the group testing officer asks you to do. So, so far, so far, you would have worked in leaderless group tasks, like we already discussed that the progressive group task and the half group task would be done as a leaderless group. Like there would be no particular commander or no particular leader, where no responsibility is given to individual, where the whole group is responsible for anything that happens, good or bad. The whole group is responsible. But command task is the only task where the responsibility of completion of the task is given to you when you are called to work as a commander. And obviously, in the command task, the only task this is the only task where even though you're working with people, but you are solely responsible for anything that happens during the course. So now let's discuss about the manner of conduct of this task. So what happens is that you would all be sitting, your group would be sitting in a room that would be allotted to you, and the GTO would call out the candidate one by one. He could either call out the members or the candidates randomly or in a sequence. It depends upon the requirement. After calling in the candidate, he or she is asked some basic and very basic personal questions to bring the candidate at ease as a commander. Now, the group testing officer knows that the candidate that has come needs to perform as a commander. So he needs to be brought at ease first, because it is a basic human tendency that a person gets nervous after performing all the tasks as a group. Now, when you have to lead the group as a commander, it is very normal to feel a little nervous and a little tense. So what happens is that the group testing officer calls you in and he asks you a few personal questions. What's your name? What is the meaning of your name? How did the other how did the other test went? And all the basic questions that you might have mentioned in your PIQ. You must remember that one copy of your PIQ is also given to the group testing officer. So, following this, the task is made familiar to the commander by the GTO and is provided by the load and the helping materials and is given the leverage to call out two subordinates who would help him or her throughout the task. The time allotted is 10 to 15 minutes. Now, what happens is after the group testing officer has asked you your personal questions and he has made you at ease because you are to perform as a commander, he shows you your task. He takes you to the place where your task is to be conducted and he shows you the structure which you have to clear. He then tells you that the rules that you're going to be following would be the same as the ones you followed in progressive group task and your half group task. We would be discussing about the rules a little later. And you are also, sorry, and you were given your helping materials and the load. And then you are given the leverage to call out two subordinates. You are to call two subordinates who would help you throughout your task. They could be any chess number, and the time allotted for all of this would be 10 to 15 minutes. The way to proceed through the task, as well as the rules, remain the same as those of PGT and half group task, except for the group rule. Now, I believe that we should discuss about the rules first. So, during the progressive group task and the half group task, there are a certain number of rules that one must follow. The first rule is the group rule. So what happens is that once you're working as a group, so this group rule suggests that before once completed a task and before approaching the other one, you have to make sure that all of your group has completed the first task and have crossed the finish line, and then only can you start the other one. That is the group rule. The second rule is the distance rule. Now, the distance rule suggests that the distance of more than 4 feet sorry. Now, the distance of more than 4 feet cannot be jumped. You have to bridge that distance. If the distance is less than 4 feet between two structures, so you can jump or you can simply cross it by taking a big step. But if the distance is more than 4 feet, you have to bridge it. Now, how can you judge the 4 feet gap? You have to make a mental assessment, or you can judge it by your helping material. You can, before starting your task, you can judge how how much 4 feet could be on your fata or either your balli, and then you can judge it by that. The next rule is the color rule. Sorry, the rigidity rule. So what happens in the rigidity rule is that the helping materials that you are given a fata, a balli, and a rope. Now the fata and the balli, these two are your rigid helping materials. So now the rule of rigidity states that you cannot tie two rigid materials together. You cannot tie your fata and your balli using a rope together. You can obviously keep them one over the other and then hold it by your hand. Put pressure on it to make it stable, but you cannot tie your fata and your balli together. Then comes the color rule. Now, what does the color rule state? Now, there are three basic colors, that is the white color, the yellow color, and the red color that you will find on your structures. So, the white color suggests that you and your helping materials, that your group and the helping material and the load can use the white part of the structure. That is that you can step on the white color of the structure and you can keep your helping material on it and everything. What the yellow color on the structure states that it is only accessible to the living members of the group. Now, when I say the living members of the group, you have to understand that in a group, not only the members are counted, but also the helping material and the load is counted. So only the living members of the group can access the yellow color. That is, your helping material and the load cannot be put or in any way touched on the yellow part of the structure. Then comes the red part, the red color of the structure. Now, red is a complete no for everyone. No member of the group, living or non-living, can touch in any way the red part of the structure. So these are the basic rules that are to be followed. And also there is the rule of infinity. That is your starting line and your finishing line, they extend to infinity. so that once you're asked to complete the task, you simply do not turn around and you cross the task without actually using the helping material. So that is why the rule of infinity is important to say that the starting line and the finishing line, they extend to infinity. So you cannot cross by growing from the side. So these are the basic rules that they are also going to tell you. So now we'll come forward talking about the rules that are considered or that are to be followed in your command task. Now all the rules are to be followed in your command task apart from one, that is the group rule. And what was the group rule? That before approaching another task, you have to make sure that all members of your group complete the first task. And that is because only one task is given to you. So you don't have to worry about the group rule. Right, just like we said, and that is what it is. So during the course of the task, the GTO might or might not increase or decrease the difficulty of the task by either giving or taking time, or by changing the colors of the structure from white to yellow or red, or taking away one of the helping materials. Now, it is very common that during the course, when you're performing your command task, it is very common for the GTO to increase or decrease the difficulty of the task. And how can he do so? The most simplest way of doing it is that he can give or take time from you. Like if you're allotted the time of 10 to 15 minutes, so he can take out 5 or 2 to 3 minutes from your time, and now you have to hurry up. So what happens is that once you have to hurry up, you start panicking. So you have to make sure that you don't do that and be calm. So this is one of the ways that the group testing officer can increase or decrease the difficulty of your task. The other way he does that is by changing the colors of the structure. Now the structure has obviously the given white, yellow, and the red colors on it, but the group testing officer might change the white color to the yellow color, or he might change the yellow color to the red one, or he might simply change white to red. That is very common, and he can also take one of your helping materials. So you have to always keep and rack your brain to come up with solutions. The task can either be to take all the members of the group, including the helping material and the load, from one end to the other, or it can be to retrieve the load from either center or the finish line to the start line. Nevertheless, the way to proceed and the rules remain the same. Now, the task can be conducted in two ways. Now the task can simply be either that the members of your group and the load have to be crossed from start line to the finish line, just like in progressive group task and half group task, or it could be the task where you have to retrieve the load, or as people usually call, the retraction of the bomb. So what happens is that in this case, you are either given the simple structures of the start line and the finish line, where the load is kept at the finish line, and you have to start from the starting line, and you have to simply retrieve the load and come back. You don't have to bother about taking all the members of your group to the finish line. All you have to focus upon is taking the load from the finish line to the starting line. Or what can happen is that the structures might be placed in a circle, and the load might be kept at the center of it. So now you have to retrieve the load from the center of the circle using your helping material and the structures that are provided to you. Nevertheless, the way to proceed, that is, however you would have proceeded in the other task, or how you proceeded in your progressive group task and your half group task, you have to proceed the same way, and the rules will also remain the same. Now let us discuss that what are the things that are assessed during the command task. It is very important to know what are the things that are assessed, so that we don't by any chance hide them, or we don't subside those qualities that are already in us and we fail to showcase them. So it is very important to know what is being assessed during the command task. So the first thing that is assessed, and obviously it is the most major thing of the command task, and that is the ability to lead a group. The first thing that they test or they check is your ability to lead a group. Now, what would be a commander, or what would be a leader, or should I say, what would be an officer who cannot even lead a group to to complete a task, right? So this is what is being tested: the ability to lead a group. Now, the second thing that is being tested is the effective mental and reasoning intelligence. Now, the structures that are given to you are not necessarily very tough. They are actually quite easy. Now, what they test is how effective your reasoning and your mental intelligence is so that you can cross from one part to the other part. Now, the next is the organizing capability. Now, it is very important to keep your thoughts, the solutions that are coming to you to complete the task, organized. Because if they run haphazard, you might not be able to complete the task and you might not able to effectively lead your group to the completion of the task. Now, they also test your cooperative skills. Now, you will not only be presenting yourself as a commander, but if another chess number is being called and he is the commander and he calls you as a subordinate, so now you also have to showcase your skills as how cooperative you are if someone commands you. So your cooperative skills are also tested, and your self confidence. You have to be very self confident, and you have to be confident of what and you have to be confident of the solution that you have provided to the structure. There will be many instances when the group testing officer would be on to you, constantly pestering you and asking, Commander, do you think the structure that you've made is stable, or is do you think that you will be able to cross it? And so what happens is that most people, they lose their confidence and they hurry up, and they try to change the solution, or they try to change the bridging that they have already done. So you have to be confident of what you have already done, and obviously initiate and cross it to show him that it was stable enough. So that you basically need to show that you are confident of your thoughts and you're confident of your problem solving abilities. Now, your ability to initiate, obviously as a commander you have to initiate, so that is what is being tested. And also your convincing ability. Now, what would be an officer who cannot convince his own group? So you have to be so self-confident and you have to be so convincing that the group that you are leading, they don't feel hesitant to be following your footsteps. Now, the next thing that is being tested is the ability to handle pressure. Like I already said, that the group testing officer would be trying and doing all the tactics to increase the pressure on you. He would be doing everything to increase the pressure on you. And it is not a bad thing. It is actually a good thing when a group testing officer tries to increase the difficulty of your task and he tests you how good you are under pressure. It actually adds on to your point, so there is nothing to worry about, and you should be taking the challenge head on when he does that. The next thing that is being tested is the influencing capability over a group, like we've already discussed previously. Quick and accurate decision making ability. Now, to complete a task, you don't have much time, that which we already discussed is 10 to 15 minutes, and the group testing officer is bound to decrease that time. So the thing that is tested is that how quick and accurate your decision making ability is, and the adaptability and adjusting with other members and changing situations. Now they also test how good you are at adapting and adjusting with the other members of the group, and how you react when the situations change, how calm you remain and how composed you remain. Either there you have two options: either you can get panicked and ruin your performance, or you can keep calm and show him what he needs to see. So we'll just have a look at the sample command task. So like we already discussed, this one that we see is the circle one, where the load would certainly be kept here somewhere at the center, and you have to use any of these structures to go in the middle using your helping materials, that is your fata bali and your rope. Now, it is also possible that in such a task, the group testing officer might tell you which starting structure to use to proceed it here. Never panic, keep on thinking, and you'll come to a solution. And this is also one of the the similar tasks to this, where the load would be kept here, and here are the structures where you have to go here. And this is the other one, that is, here is a I'm sorry, here is a starting line, and here is the finishing line. Now, this is a part of the progressive group task, but it is just to give you an example of how the command task would be, or how the structures would be. So here would be a starting line, and here is the finishing line, and these would be extending to infinity, so you don't cross from here. So they have to make sure that you don't do anything stupid. All right. So what you have to do is you have to either retrieve the load from the finish line to the starting line, or you have to take your group, your helping material, and the members of your group and the load to the finish line using these structures and the helping material that has been provided to you. Now, make sure that whenever you cross from your start line to the finish line, you take all the members of the group, that is, the candidates, the subordinates that you have called for help, and also the helping materials. No helping materials should be left behind. It shows carelessness. So now let's discuss on how we should be proceeding. So, as I already told you, that the group testing officer would be calling you randomly or in sequence, and he would be asking you a few personal questions, and then he would be showing you the task that is to be performed by you. Now, what is the thing that is to be kept in mind? That and it is to listen carefully to the instructions that are provided to you by the GTO. It is very important to listen carefully to the instructions that are provided to you by the GTO because already discussed, he might make some changes in the structure either at the beginning of the task or in the middle of the task. So be very alert to when the instructions are given to you. But you don't want to be caught inattentive or absent-minded. Now you don't want to be caught because you're going to be a commander, you're going to be leading a group. So you don't want to be caught inattentive or absent-minded who would not even listen to the instructions that are provided by the GTO. Now, look very closely to the task assigned to you. Now, the task that is assigned to you consists a number of structures. You watch very carefully, you look at them very carefully, and frame a basic solution. And you will keep, which you will follow as soon as the task starts. So once he shows you the structure, you can always frame up a basic solution that you will follow. You look at the task very carefully, you look at all the structures very carefully, and then you frame a basic solution so that you can instantly start as soon as the task starts. If you're unable to do so, don't panic. Keeping calm and allowing your brain anxiety-free space to think mostly does the deed. So what happens is that sometimes looking at the structure doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get ideas, one idea after the other. That is not usually the case. So you don't have to panic. It is very normal and it is very common that you cannot frame a basic solution before the task starts. You need not panic about them. You need to keep calm. You need to keep your brain composed, and you have to give your brain some anxiety-free space so that you can think very calmly, and then you can cross the structure and take your group with it and get marks that you most certainly deserve. So, when asked to call upon the subordinates, you must be very specific on who you want to call depending upon the specifications of your task. Now, you have already seen your task, and you can see it's not, like I said, it's not necessary that you're going to get the solution as soon as you see the task, but you can always get a basic idea of what other uh, ability that you would need in your subordinate. You might see that if the task is a little tough or it seems a little tough to you, you might be needing a person who is good at tying ropes because you might be needing a few because you can see that the structure might involve some rope tying and keeping your helping material on it. So you would like to call upon the subordinates that are good at it, and you might also not want to call in someone who is very a little lean and a little weak. So he or she might not be able to lift the fata or the bali when you command them to, and it might touch the ground, and your helping material and yourself as well are not to be touching the ground. That is, you are not to touch the space on the ground in between your start line and your finish line. So be very specific on who you call. Friendships and favoritism can be left for some time. That is true. You can keep these two things for discussions or for talking during your free time at home, but definitely not let them hamper or ruin your task. Be confident in speaking when you explain the rules and tasks to your subordinates. So once you call on your subordinates, you have to explain all the things that are, and all you have to tell all of the things, the rules and the structure to the subordinates that you've called for help. Now you have to make sure that once you're speaking or once you're telling them, you have to be confident because an officer is always confident and a leader cannot be caught self-conscious because it would not give the confidence to the team to follow him. So you be very confident in when you speak. Now, feel free to take a little time looking at the structures and planning the solutions, for you don't want to look uncertain while proceeding through it. Now, once your task starts, you need not start it at that very instant as soon as your group testing officer asks you to start it. You can always take a little time. You can take a few deep breaths, you can look at the structures, and then you can frame a basic solution. So you need to keep calm. You need not rush through it, because if you rush through it, you might not be very certain of what you're performing. And while proceeding through it in the middle of any structure, you don't want to look uncertain. That would not set a very good example for your team that is following you. Now, try to be cheerful and optimistic in your approach, and have faith and confidence on your plan. You need to be cheerful and optimistic. Now, you don't need to perform the task having this face. Like, just number this, give me this, just number this, give me that. No, you can be cheerful and you can be optimistic. You also have to cheer your team, or you have to cheer your team that yes, we can do it, or you have to instill that sense of uh, cheerfulness. I would say you have to instill that sense of cheerfulness by your action and by the way you are proceeding through it. You don't have to be caught, or you would not want to be caught very pessimistic in your approach or anything like that. You're the leader. You need to set an example for your team, and that is exactly what you're going to do. So be very sure of that. So, if your subordinate need your help, keep if your subordinates need your help physically in the execution of the task, then you should help them. So now, while performing, what happens is that you have bridged the distance, and if the subordinates they need your help to cross it, you should instantly give them your hand, or you should assist them in crossing it. You should be quick in starting the obstacle and enter the obstacle first to plan further. Now, when I say that you can take a few moments before starting, it doesn't mean that you can take 5 to 10 minutes. You're standing behind the structure and you're thinking of what needs to be done next. You can always take 30 seconds to 45 seconds or even a minute, but then you have to proceed. You need to do something because you are the commander, and you always need to. And not always, but it's advised that you enter the obstacle first. Why is that? Because if you're not entering the obstacle first, how are you going to plan further? So it's advisable that you enter the obstacle first, and then you look at the structures ahead, you look at all the colors of the structures, and then you plan ahead on how to take your team with you. Ensure that your subordinate doesn't break any rule, and if they break any rule, don't hesitate to admit it. Now, as a leader, you have to ensure that your team or your subordinates they don't break any rules, or you don't break any rules. But in case if it happens, like your helping materials fell on the ground, or you break any rule by any chance, so you should never hesitate to admit it. You need to admit it and then correct your mistake. In some cases, if the GTO is instructing not to use any helping material or any structure, then don't panic. I don't know why I have written done, but this means certainly means don't panic. The GTO does this to increase your difficulty level as you are good at your task. So what happens, like we already said, that the GTO is instructing not to use any helping materials. He is definitely increasing the difficulty of your task. So you need not panic. The GTO does this to increase your difficulty level as you are good at your task. He sees that you are easily sailing through the task, so that is not what he wants. So he will definitely increase the difficulty to it to see how good you are under pressure. Now, on completion, you should take all the material at the start line where it was kept. Now, after you've completed the task and you've taken it all to the finish line, or you've completed your task, so what you need to do is take all the helping material to the starting line. Thank your team members. Obviously, they were your subordinates, so you will thank them and the GTO as well before going back with the other candidates. If you are called a helper, then show your maximum cooperation. Now, you would only be called a commander once, but you might be called as a helper or as a subordinate more than once or even more than twice. So you must show your maximum cooperation. You should have faith in your commander and never hesitate in obeying his command. You need to know that you are a subordinate, and you need not show I'm sorry, and need not show your problem solving skills in his or her task. You need to be cooperative and very confident and faithful of your commander, and you should not hesitate in obeying his commands. Now, even if you see that the bridging that he or she has done or your commander has done is not very stable and he asks you to step on it, you step on it as straight as it goes. So now, what are the actions that are to be avoided? Now, avoid being nervous before or during the task. Like, it is very common and it is very obvious, and you should not be nervous, because once you're nervous, your brain stops working, and Most of the energy is channelized into thinking how you can escape the situation. While you don't have to escape the situation, you have to face the situation head on and take on all the challenges. We are going to be an officer and we're not going to be nervous. So, we need not be nervous before or during the task. Do not open up too much in front of the GTO during the casual walk and talk. Now, they will pretend to be your friend or they will pretend to be your talk buddy. Now, during the casual walk and talk, that is before starting uh, your task, the round of questionnaire that the GTO plays with you, the personal question thing, you need not open too much. He is not your friend. He is still a group testing officer, and you have to make sure that in your casual talking, you don't give him some material or you don't give him some thing that might go against you. So you always need to know how much to speak and when to speak. Never become angry or shout at your team members. Now, it is very important that you never become angry or you don't show impatience in your face and you do not shout at your team members. What happens at times is when the group testing officer is sitting there and you're not able to come up with solutions, you tend to become panicky. Once you become panicky, you become angry. You become so nervous that you start shouting at your team members if they are not able to complete something or they're not able to walk through a particular bridging that you have made. You are never to do that. And even if you're able to perform all of the tasks or you're able to think of the solutions, you don't have any right to be shouting at your subordinates. They're your subordinates, not your labor. So avoid being disappointing in obviously. So avoid being disappointed in their work and always motivate and encourage them. They might fall while crossing a particular bridge. So you don't have to show disappointment on your face. You don't have to become angry or you don't have to show impatience. But you always need to motivate and you need to encourage them. You are like the head of the family at the time. So the head of the family always care for the members of the family, and that is exactly what you're going to do. If you're stuck at some point in the task, observe your position and try to replan the things and find the way out. So now, if you're stuck at a particular task, or if you are stuck at some point in the task, like you're in the middle of the task and there are structures still to be completed, and you're stuck there, you cannot come up with any solution, then again, you need not panic. You observe your position, you carefully look around, you look at all the kinds of the solution that you can make using your row, fatta, balli, and solutions are bound to come because once you're given a problem, you need to know that the solutions are all out there. All you have to do is pick one and go through it. The solutions are all there. Never panic. You're going to do it. How it happens. Avoid taking ideas or suggestions from your subordinates. Now, before starting your task, the group testing officer certainly says that you can call your subordinates, and if you're stuck somewhere, you can take ideas and suggestions from your subordinates. Of course, he says that, but you need to avoid doing that. You need to avoid taking ideas or suggestions from your subordinates. Well, that's a different thing if you are absolutely stuck, like you don't know how to proceed now. You've been thinking for quite some time, your time's running out, you cannot come up with any solution. You might take permission from the group testing officer and ask him if you can ask for some ideas or suggestions from your subordinates. So you can always do that. You should remember that it is your task and it's your turn to show your abilities. So you leave no stone unturned, absolutely no stone unturned to think and come up with a solution on your own and not take ideas from your